Seriously.
I'm curious where you're from. So Sandra?
Yeah.
Where'd you, so you live in Alton right now.
I do live in
You
Alton.
did not live in Alton.
I did not.
Right.
I did not know
Right.
anything about Alton before meeting this guy.
Right.
Didn't even know it existed.
Right.
I am from Chicago.
Yeah.
Originally, I was born in Chicago. My parents are Mexican, and so I grew up part of my life in Mexico as well, part of my childhood in Mexico. But most of my life has been in Chicago.
Right. So you lived in the big city.
I did,
Did
yeah.
you
I
live in
grew
the
up.
city? Did you live in a suburb?
No, I grew up in the city.
Really?
So
Wow.
we lived in like a 3-flat apartment, and it
Wow.
was like a 3-bedroom
Yeah.
apartment, pretty much. And yeah, I took the bus to school, the city
Right.
bus to school. So yeah, very different
Like
from.
sidewalks and buses and cars and traffic. And,
Yes, very
Yeah.
different from Alton for
Right,
sure.
yeah.
But yeah, so
Yeah.
that's kind of where.
So that's where you
I'm
grew
at.
up, right?
Yeah.
And where'd you go to school? Did you leave? You left Chicago, right?
So I left Chicago to go to U of I, so University of
Okay,
Illinois in
right.
Urbana-Champaign.
Just downstate, yeah.
Yeah. And when I was there, I wanted to travel abroad, and I did like
Okay.
a semester abroad in Spain, the
Wow,
northern
yeah.
part of Spain.
Right.
And I just kind of fell in love with traveling. And after I graduated, I really wanted to do the Peace Corps.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
But that didn't work out just for many different reasons.
Right.
And so I always had that bug to travel or to continue to travel
Right.
after college. And I met him, and that's how we started.
Where'd you guys meet?
It was a weird kind of sales job that we both kind of hated, but it was right out of college.
Right.
Entry level job, and weren't really sure what we were going to do. So, yeah, we were over the phone salespeople basically.
Are you serious?
We were
Yeah.
selling like job postings
Yeah.
during
Okay.
like
Career
the
builder.
beginning of like a really bad
Recession.
recession.
Oh, this is like in 2008.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
it was, yeah.
So
You were telemarketers.
yeah, kind
Yeah,
of
kind of.
something like that for businesses.
calling?
For businesses,
Some cold
yeah.
calling.
Right.
Some were longtime clients. But
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Most of it was cold calling for me,
Yeah.
at least.
it was kind of a brutal job.
So you worked. You called businesses about job
selling
postings.
job postings, and
Right.
it was
The
depressing.
beginning of a recession.
Right.
Yeah.
That was just a random. That didn't have anything to do with your major or
Well,
your.
I was an advertising major, which it was
Okay.
like marketing. You
Sure,
know,
yeah.
it was a marketing job, so it had something to do with
Right.
it. But I just needed to travel. I think that was my
Yeah.
main thing. I wanted to continue
Yeah.
to explore. I just when I traveled abroad during college, I just like realized how much more there was to
Right.
see, and I grew up so much more, and the connections I built from that,
Yeah.
1 year of being abroad, like just expanded my mind in so many
Right.
different ways.
Yeah.
And like food, like I ate food that I would have never eaten before
Right,
in my
yeah,
life
sure.
because I had never been exposed to that,
Right.
even though I grew up in a big city. but yeah, so I just knew I wanted to keep traveling. And so yeah, when I found this program where you could go and teach English in South Korea, and
Wow,
you got
yeah.
paid really well to pretty much travel and live abroad, I was like, okay, I got to do this,
Yeah.
It'll.
Where are you from?
I'm actually from Alton, so
Right,
I
yeah.
grew up somewhat walking distance from where we are right now. Yeah, born and raised here,
Yeah.
and I was here until I went away to college.
Right. And where'd you go to college?
Illinois State University.
Okay.
It's,
Something near Bloomington,
Normal.
right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Somewhat close to where she was, but we didn't know each other. So
Right.
Yeah.
So you guys both went. So you're from Chicago. Went to U of I.
Yep.
You're from Alton, Illinois. Went to Illinois State, and then
Yeah.
you ended up both working at this company in Chicago
yeah,
after college.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. And you're in advertising. What was your major?
I was an English major. I've
Okay,
never really done
yeah.
anything with my major.
Right, yeah.
So
So you traveled during college.
I traveled during college. yeah.
Right. And that's what got the bug. Did you travel growing up? Did your family travel at all?
No, we
Right.
were mainly like I mean, the most travel we ever did was like going camping to like Wisconsin or Indiana,
Right.
and that was as much as we got. Oh, and like Mexico, you know, because I have
Okay,
family
you went back
there.
home, yeah.
Yeah, so we
Yeah.
would go to Mexico sometimes, but yeah, no, that's as far as like traveling goes, and yeah.
So you grew up going to Wisconsin and what, Indiana? Is
Yeah,
that-
Indiana.
And you're like, no way, I'm going to Spain.
Yeah.
I'm going to Korea.
yeah,
Right.
so
The world's much bigger than
yeah.
Chicagoland. Yeah.
My
You know?
mom was
Yeah.
so worried about me because she's like, "You are so picky. You're such a picky eater. How are you going to
How are you gonna
survive in another like country?"
Yeah.
And I mean, I was eating like some of the most amazing meals I had ever
Yeah.
tried before, and it was different than what I would have ever tried in Chicago, you know. And so that was part of it. I just made friends.
Yeah.
Who were also either studying abroad or
Yeah.
friends that were from Bilbao. Bilbao is the city where I was studying.
Yeah.
And yeah, I learned so much just from being there. Even though it is like such a Western, you know, like country, and it's Western Europe, it was still such a different experience from
Right,
the,
yeah.
the bubble where I grew up in.
So you did that during college. You guys met after college. And then you had this conversation where you were like, I'm going to keep going.
Yeah.
We're going to keep traveling.
Yes.
So
Yeah, I honestly was a little bit aimless. I think that's
Yeah.
kind of maybe part of my personality. One of the things I can get that way, you know. So I had done a lot of traveling too, and it did interest me a lot.
Yeah.
Not around the world. I had left the continent, I think, once and been to Argentina
Yeah.
when my sister lived there. But I had
You traveled with your family though,
Yeah.
around the States
Oh,
pretty
yeah.
much, yeah.
every summer we piled into my parents' car and
Right.
went around to a national park or the coast or a city. We kind of tied it all in there, and typically every summer for 2 or 3 weeks we'd be living out of a van, not living out of a van, but driving around America in my
Yeah.
parents' van. So
Yeah.
I had done a ton of traveling, just not too much outside of America. And she brought it up, and then I just, on a whim, I thought it sounded really interesting, and
Yeah. And so Sandra, your job in Korea was you taught.
Yeah, so
Right.
I was a teacher. Yeah, so
Right.
we were both teachers actually, because we
Okay, so
both
then
did
you
the
both-
program.
yeah.
Yeah, and so we moved out there, and we were in like a tiny little apartment. We've never lived together, so we moved into to a new country, and they put us in the smallest studio apartment.
Right.
Yeah.
And yeah, this was our first time living together
Right.
ever as a boyfriend and girlfriend. So we kind of like took double leap, you know, because
Yeah.
not only
Yeah.
did we move abroad, but moved in together.
Yeah, those are
as well.
life-changing
Yeah.
events. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
So
You
it
could
was,
sit on the edge of the bed and like touch the sink, you know.
Sure.
It was definitely
Yeah.
tight.
but yeah,
Yeah.
but the program paid for like all of our housing and like everything.
And did you teach while you were there too?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
We both taught, got a lot out of it. I mean, living there was like the most eye-opening and incredible experience. But I also kind of learned that I enjoyed the job and I liked teaching, but I knew that I wasn't meant to be a teacher.
Yeah.
Whereas she kind of caught the bug, and
Right.
a few years later, after living in a couple other countries, she ended up getting her master's in education.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's kind of when I figured out. That's when I found out I liked photography. So
Right.
I like bought
Yeah.
a camera with my first paycheck, actually, and then just became kind of an obsessive over it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Tell me about that. So what? So now, I mean, Sandra, you're teaching. Like that's
yeah,
your career.
that is
You're-
yes.
you're
I'm a
teaching
teacher.
Over, over the river.
Yeah, I teach ESL students.
Right.
So it's similar to
Right.
what I was doing in Korea.
Right.
But I teach ESL students here, over the river. So yeah.
Right. Over in Ferguson.
Yeah.
Just 20 minutes away.
Yep.
Yeah. And then Matt, you chose a different path.
yeah,
Yeah. So you become a professional photographer.
yeah.
Right.
I'm a photographer and videographer, and I mean, I think, again, I get to thank her for that, because I don't think I would have, if I wouldn't have gone to Korea and moved there and bought a camera, I wouldn't have gotten interested in photography, and I wouldn't have the career that I have right now, so,
Yeah. So you've been all over the world.
yeah.
So you grew up not traveling. and you now the impression I get is that this is just normal for you guys, right?
Yeah.
Like to live internationally is like not a big deal. Like you know how, I mean, you had to be taught how to do the paperwork. I'm sure you
Yeah.
have you know
Totally.
you have your passports.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, so the question is why Alton? You know, like you've lived all around the world, you've met people all around the world, you have jobs that allow you to travel. So when did you move to Alton and why?
Sure. So during the pandemic, we visited my parents,
Yeah.
who have always been extremely helpful with a 4-year-old, especially if I have to leave. There's been times where I've been gone 10 days internationally, and my parents have even come to Austin and helped her, you know, because
Yeah.
she's been teaching and been
Right.
busy, and they were just such an incredible help. We came and visited them during the pandemic, and
Right.
it was just really like nice. My son had such a great time too. Our son, I should say. Our son had such a great time here, being with his grandparents. They're in walking distance to Haskell Park, so we were there a lot. And it was just so positive and such a great trip that we were just kind of on a whim looked at Zillow out of curiosity. We had been looking at houses in Austin for a while.
We had been thinking of doing like a tiny home
Oh yeah.
living. We had tried to build
Yeah.
a tiny home in Austin, but there was always like
Red tape.
land was so hard, and like if it was not in a floodplain, it was something else. So like when we started looking here, like the thought of it came up because we had thought about eventually at some point moving to Alton when we got married.
Okay. Yeah.
We always talked about the idea, but it always seemed like such a far away idea, or maybe not, because we were living in Austin and we were pretty settled at that point there. And when we came 2 years ago,
Yeah.
we started looking at land, like lots, because we were just like, oh, maybe we could just build something here, or. And then that's kind of how it started. We started looking
Yeah.
on Zillow and found homes that
Sure.
were like, hey.
Yeah.
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 She wanted to do a tiny home. I was into it. I would have done it.
Yeah.
But yeah, we kind of went in the opposite direction. I mean, it's not a huge place, but compared to where, you know, the places that we've lived
Right.
before, it was definitely much bigger, I think, than we were looking for, and found a really great place here. In a really beautiful neighborhood. I've always really liked Henry Street. We're right off of Henry, and I don't know. Alton's just a really special place to me.
Right.
You know, my family's here, and it really just has a charm. And we had such a great time visiting here, and found something about
Right.
a fifth of the price that we would have paid in Austin as well.
Right.
So I think it was just all those things together.
Yeah.
We decided that day, the first time we looked at this house, we're like, all right, let's just do it. If we can get this, let's come back. So.
Right.
And you know, I always kind of knew that there was a little special, like a special charm about Alton. But I also think in the last few years, it's really, it's gotten a lot better. There's more here to do.
Yeah.
I became obsessed with coffee when I lived in England. I lived next to a really great coffee spot. And it was the first time I'd ever had like actual good coffee. I wasn't really that into it before that, and thought coffee was, you know, just Starbucks or gas station nonsense. So got really into it in England, and it was really nice to move back to Alton. I wasn't expecting much, but went to Post Commons, this incredible place. You know, I mean, as a coffee shop itself, it's one of the most beautiful places I've seen.
And I'm fascinated, like you all this, you know, international travel, that you're able to get that here.
Yeah.
You're able to get that. Yeah, you're able to get what you expect, a standard in food, drink, whatever. You know?
Yeah, that was a really cool
yeah.
thing. And you know, the same thing with Old Bakery. It's really nice that there's like a great brewery in town,
Right. Yeah.
and they have great food too. And yeah, the food scene's just a lot better in Alton than it was when I was growing up.
Also, they're in an amazing buildings. Like the fact that
Yeah.
these like older buildings have been turned
Right.
into like,
Yeah.
you know, breweries and coffee shops. It's like beautiful, you know?
Yeah, the
And-
revitalization in Alton is amazing,
Yeah.
definitely.